I don't know that you're exactly down with speaking about Affliction and their promotion, but I would like to get your take. I know you were there, and I know you saw the Fedor fight against Arlovski. A lot of takes, opposing sides on how that fight went. Some people thought that Andrei was giving him a lot of trouble. I was watching. I thought Andrei was doing some things that were confusing him, but Fedor looked so calm in the ring, and his hands are down. And I don't know if he was stunned or it was just kind of like his demeanor. Eventually, he caught him. But how did you see the fight?
Well, I was there, and two guys fighting on the card. Vitor Belfort started training here about 6 months ago, and he fought Matt Lindland, my old partner. So that was a hard fight for me. And obviously, he did well. He caught Matt with a left hand and knocked him down, and then on top of knocking him out, Jay Haran was our other guy that fought. And then we had Chris Ordesky too that got pulled out because of a bulging disc. So I was there, stayed in the back room, and watched the fights on the little monitor. And I thought, when is Fedor not calm, cool, and collected? He's getting knocked silly by Fujita years ago, and never showed anything. He got suplexed by Randleman, never showed anything. That's just how he fights. That's what makes him so amazing, is his demeanor. Walking out there, he's like, where's this guy going?
I thought the whole show was amazing. It was the music, and it's just crazy.
He's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah.
I think Fedor was definitely being hurt. Arlovski had clipped him a couple times, and Arlovski knew he hurt him too, because he got so excited that he jumped into the flying knee, and instead of sticking with his game plan, which I'm sure that wasn't part of it, and walked right into the overhand right that put him on the canvas. So, I was amazed. I thought, I had an inkling that there was maybe a potential upset brewing, and the way the fight started, I was like, oh my God, he's going to do this, and then obviously it didn't end that way. But
so then it's proper to walk out of that fight going, you know what, the air of invincibility, even though he won in 3 minutes, he can be beaten. I mean, we shouldn't walk away and go, well, he did it again. It's just the guy's amazing.
Yeah, well, the guy is amazing.
Yeah.
You can't take that from him. He's beaten a lot of top guys in the sport and done it in amazing fashion. And yeah, he was getting kicked around and punched and looked a little frustrated, but he still pulled out of the timing and that overhand right, and the way he throws his punches. It was amazing. I've not seen a guy get stopped in midair and spun around and land on their face. So I mean, it was what it was.
So it was an interesting situation for you, because there's a conflict there. You've had your issues with Affliction, and now you're back with UFC, and UFC is fighting and battling Affliction. So how do you manage that situation, and how do you manage in general? We brought up some issues on the Yahoo blog the last couple of weeks of people using your quotes from months ago, and maybe broadcast companies using stuff that you didn't want them to use in a certain way. So how do you deal with all this?
Well, I think it's part and parcel with being successful in something. And so it's something, I used to think it was crazy that the UFC was, handing out cease and desists on protecting their intellectual property the way that they did on some occasions. And now I get to do that myself all the time now. People trying to use, my name, my likeness, taking quotes out of context and kind of spinning things the way they want to spin them. And so I've got to be real wary about whatever I do and whatever release I'm going to sign, and be very specific about what it's supposed to be used for. So if it's used in any other way, I have some legal recourse to stop that sort of thing from happening. And it sucks, but you have to be on guard all the time. Everybody's got an angle. Everybody wants something, and it's not much fun, but it's the nature of the business.
Comes with the territory.
Yeah.
So the CBC does this investigative piece on the fighters versus UFC versus Dana White. They portray Dana as an evil guy, and they brought up an interview they did with you during the summer. It was clearly during the summer. Then this is where I thought it got really serious, and where maybe you'd be angry at this. They basically allege that, hey, you know what? Poor Randy Couture. They paid him off. They gave him his $250 in salary. He's going to get a huge back end of the pay-per-view. They put the number at $2.75 million and suggested that, you know what? He's given up, and the fight is over for Randy Couture. He did what he could do, and they bought him.
No, that's not true. The contract that I have now was no different than the contract I left when I resigned. It's basically the same contract. Went from 225 to 250, and the same pay-per-view deal on the back end that I had before. So they didn't buy anything. I couldn't afford to fight for a whole nother year and sit on my hands and not compete, and saw that the path of least resistance and the most likelihood of getting a chance to fight Fedor was going to happen if I came back to the UFC. I can at least try to bring Fedor to the table with Affliction to the table, and then Todd Beard blows up and you know, threatens Lorenzo and all the other crap that happened. That could have come out completely different had,
right.
had that not occurred that way. But those are things that are out of my control. So, you know, to say that I sold out is a bunch of crap. It's not true. And the fact that I'm making a lot more on the back end because of this fight is because it's one of the biggest fights the UFC's ever put on pay-per-view. That's why I'm getting a bigger piece. It has nothing to do with my contract or the deal being any different than it was before I resigned. So.
Just telling you what's out there,
yeah,
and I'm telling you what's coming because you know, obviously I work mainstream media, I do the MMA stuff, and that's the way it works. You know, once columnists, once more TV gets involved, they're going to do what they want. And in this case of the Canadian company, they twisted it around pretty good.
Yeah, well, that, you know, I saw the same thing with some of the media that when I resigned made statements, public statements, and you know, put things up that weren't true. And that's the whole reason I had my own press conference, was to say, hey, this is a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
These numbers are wrong. This is the real situation from my mouth to your ears. And they still don't print retractions and do things, you know, to make the right and tell the facts. So that's the nature of the media sometimes. And it's unfortunate that some people